Welcome to Watches Tonight. I am Tim Mosso, your host, and this is the 1916 Company. This evening we have Sid on the switcher. Welcome one and all. Tonight I list my 10 favorite Omegas of the last 10 years. We chat live and I share your wrist shots tonight on Watches Tonight. And because this is an Omega-centric episode, in addition to my Garrick S6, I've got my old graduation Seamaster and the Mission to the Moon Moonswatch. So as you file in, let me advise you that from the 27th through 28th, that's Friday and Saturday, coming up this week, I will be at our Newport Beach location. We're going to do a 9:30 to 10 o'clock pre-opening Coffee with Tim event at the Newport Beach location, where we've got 10 watch brands brand new. Aside from the OEM stuff, we've also got some pre-owned. It's going to be a lot of fun if you want that very intimate experience to talk, chat, and share our passion for watches. You want to check out 1916 events. That's the email, 1916 events at the 1916company.com. Events at the 1916company.com. I know my production crew is going to get on me for that. Separately, October 11th and 12th at our Denver location, Jack Forster is going to be at our other watch fair in Denver, Colorado. So again, events at the 1916company.com if you want to chat with me and Jack in Southern California and Denver. Welcome to one and all. While we're warming up, open up my Instagram at Tim_Mosso and follow my page. As you can see from the presence of Squash the dog, there's a little bit of personal sort of snapshot day in the life insights alongside the 1-minute video watch reviews. Welcome to Edward, Mark, 24 degrees from the UK, staying up late with us. Arto Charles from New York City. Thomas Burnett, David Remus from Washington, D.C. We got Rick on Watches, Watch Out. Ristocratic from Asheville, North Carolina. Robert Wood from the great state of Texas, where everything is bigger, out in Austin. We got Mark D and 911 Euro from Winter Park, Florida. Ivar from Miami, Slowboy Fuel Pump, Sean Hansen, Mateo, Michael A from Orlando. Welcome to all of you. Okay, so viewer wrist shots number 1, instant gratification. I asked, you answered, starting off with Jim M, who captures his Aston Martin DBX and H. Moser & C Streamliner perpetual calendar in one frame. Tim M, that's Tim Mancuso, your friend and mine, and alumni of the Collector Conversations, in Philadelphia with the ultra-rare Vacheron Constantin Overseas Self-Winding Generation 3 Brown Dial. Get a good look, you won't see another like it. Jeff S impresses with his Moser Streamliner Tourbillon Rainbow, and Peter A introduces a rare Jacques Dro Grand Séquence Skelette and Ferrari 296. Nishant P and his F. Pigeon Octa Calendrier pay a visit to the soon-to-be auctioned second F. Pigeon wristwatch ever made. And Neil B upgrades Bentley from Breitling to Patek Philippe with the 5205 annual calendar. Send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your pieces on these pixels. All right, we've got Mark D joining in from Bristol, UK. A great center of glass blowing, and I believe the home of the SS Great Britain, formerly of Bristol Cars. We got Yi Ma from Sydney, Australia, getting up early with us, and Michael A from Orlando, alongside Junior Johnson and Stuart M from Sacramento. I know you're in NorCal, Stuart, but if you could make it all the way down to Newport Beach, I'd love to see you at our event. We got Jim Millett joining in from the UK. Okay. Top 10 Omega watches of the last 10 years. This is very personal, guys. I'm picking favorites. It's not necessarily universally acknowledged significance, nor are these going to be consensus choices. This show is often a personal statement by yours truly, and that's certainly the case tonight. So, this year marks my first, and hopefully not my last, decade in the watch industry, 10 years. As I turn my attention toward new challenges like watchcraft and watchmaking, I look back on watches that stood like mile markers on the road that I've traveled. Since Omega is where I started as a collector, it makes sense to chart the changes in the Omega brand since I became a full-timer in the watch industry. Our story begins in 2014. With the Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch, Gray Side of the Moon. Can we go full screen with that? Because this is a watch that deserves it. Now, this isn't anything you'll ever see on a NASA astronaut's wrist in space. This is a ground-bound moonwatch and one of the best. All in scratch-resistant gray ceramic, the successor to 2013's blockbuster Dark Side of the Moon was a more usable everyday watch, better loomed, still just as resistant to scratch, now with a wonderfully rich platinum dial. Everything here grayscale and so cool, including blackened white gold hands and hour indices. Although 44.25, it's only about 49.5 lug to lug, so a normal wrist can wear this thing. No excuses movement, tri-level coaxial, automatic winding, twin barrels. This is a COSC chronometer, yes, but it's also almost completely immune to magnetism and largely immune to shock. All of that with blackened screws and a very cool arabesque Côte de Genève across bridges and rotor. Now, $13,600 today with the full clasp. Note that the internals of the clasp are titanium, but the external part of the clasp that's going to go desk diving on your desk at work, that part is ceramic. Most brands would just use some sort of PVD full steel or titanium clasp. Omega, through the might of Swatch Group, has the ability to make the external part of the clasp in ceramic. And $13,600 today, that's pretty impressive when you consider that when it came out 10 years ago, it was $12,000. Here's something that has actually fallen behind the pace of inflation, and ain't it refreshing? Also, take note of how Omega describes its watches these days on its website. They say 49.8 lug to lug. I measured about 49.5. But I'd like to think I had some role in the fact that more brands are describing every dimension of their watches. We didn't see this 10 years ago. If I could claim credit, I would, but I've got a sneaking suspicion something familiar is going on right there. I'm not saying they're subscribed to Watchbox Reviews, now 1916 reviews, but they might be. All right. So that was the first truly significant watch of my 10 years in watches, and one of the few watches that's on like my really short list of 10 pieces I'd like to own. Taking a look in the box, guys, we can get this thing up to 300 concurrent viewers. I will be super duper happy. We've got Marquez saying, Tim, I don't miss the sunglasses, but what happened to them? They're permanently retired on the museum in my office. People see them on the tour of the building when they show up. Thomas Burnett saying the CK859 has to be in there. That wasn't one of my personal favorites, so I acknowledge it, but it's not my choice. Soterios P joining in from Pyrgos, Greece. Always a pleasure to watch your educational content. I'm not sure that it's educational, but I hope it's entertaining. And we've got Patel Philippe. Tim, what really wins out in the bang per buck? Minute repeater, IWC Portuguese, or reverso minute repeater? I would say the IWC Portuguese minute repeater is a better sounding minute repeater. There's not a lot of distinction between the volume of those two, but the reverso is a miracle because of how small the movement is. And the IWC was designed by Renaud et Papy, so while it's not loud, it does have excellent tonal qualities. The reverso minute repeater, or at least the one from 1994, if we're talking about that, it's not a great repeater. We got Stuart M saying no backwards sunglasses, but double wristing it. Yeah, almost triple, because we've got the Moonswatch right here. And we have Jim saying lug to lug is more important to gauge how a watch fits, and I could not agree more. We have Salty Boy asking, Tim, will you be at Watch Time New York City this year? No, because at the exact same time, I'm going to be flying to Hong Kong for Horology Forum 10. And I've got speaking obligations there, so I can't duck out of that one, and I really regret it. Tim Mancuso asking if I'll be at Watch Time. Again, I am so sorry, guys. I know this is a big miss, and all I can say is I'll make it up to you somehow. So, jumping back into our regularly scheduled program, this is a big one, and this is going to be one of those consensus pieces, not a personal preference. 2015 Omega Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch. This is the Apollo 13 45th anniversary. So, universally known as the Silver Snoopy 2, this watch was the best Silver Snoopy. So it's hard to believe that this thing originally retailed for $7,350, considering what they go for now, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But originally it came out as a fairly accessible, strap-clad limited edition of 1,970 pieces to celebrate the famous association between the Moonwatch, the successful recovery of the crippled Apollo 13 spacecraft, and the Silver Snoopy Award that is given by the astronauts to distinguished employees and suppliers of the space program, which of course in October of that year the astronauts awarded to Omega. So this is a fantastic execution because it goes far beyond the usual Speedmaster special. Starting with the dial, it was inspired black and white like a newspaper comic strip. We've got Snoopy. Take a look at upper left-hand corner. You can see that the indices here, instead of printed, they're solid blocks of luminescence visible against the negative of the opaque black on their center. We've also got 14 little comic cells tracing 14 seconds on the dial, indicating the 14 seconds that retro rockets were fired, timed by a Speedmaster to help recover the spacecraft. And you've got the little thought bubble from the movie Apollo 13. I think that's an Ed Harris line, "Failure is not an option." The loom was a circus. As you can see, everything is sort of in relief on the indices. Then you've got Snoopy himself, all three hands, and the tachometer. And the case back was a work of art on two different levels, as we have that lovely sort of aventurine style enamel underneath a hand-engraved sterling silver Snoopy. So both of those handcrafted arts. This was a memorable watch. Now mechanically it was a standard Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch with caliber 1861 Lamagna based, but the exterior enhancements, including a model-specific white stitched black strap, defined this incredible execution. Prices today, now here's where we get into it, they remain bonkers at up to $50,000 with full set. Despite some speculation that prices might drop with a general downturn in the watch marketplace, I'm not seeing any softness in the Snoopy 2 that would indicate a break from its long-term upward journey. This is one of those true investment-grade Omega watches, and there aren't a lot of them. Okay, so what else going on? We got a question, Tim. What are your thoughts on the Roger Dubuis Golden Square series? Are they underrated? Yes, but highly polarizing. Finely built, beautifully detailed, find one you like, and you're going to get it for a lot less than it's sold for new. And you have many options, including mother-of-pearl dials, flying tourbillon, double-digit dates, and power reserves, as well as perpetual calendars. A great way to get an incredible Geneva Hallmark timepiece with a manufacturer movement for, like, gold Rolex money. Okay, what else is going on here? We got Marcus saying the detail on that watch is excellent. We got Tom H joining in from Milwaukee in the great Midwestern state of Wisconsin. Home of Happy Days, at least the fictional home of the Cunninghams and the Fonds, as well as Harley Davidson. And we've got Anthony S saying the loom block cutout is awesome, and Van Lux saying bonkers. Well, we got more coming, guys. I would say it's a fact that Omega traditionalists tend to hold the 1982 to present Manhattan or Griffin Claw constellation at arm's length. Don't know what it is, but at least in the West, it seems like collectors never really warmed up to this design. Nostalgia for older Connie designs, especially the 1950s pie pan execution, always held back the Griffin Claw, and that's just the way it's been, really. It seems in the West we're nostalgic for the 50s and 60s, whereas in the East, the Griffin Claw constellation is a virtual institution in high luxury. So for 2015, Omega established a parallel constellation collection called the Globemaster, including this stunning full platinum model made in an edition of 352 pieces. Now we're going to stay on this for a moment because it is the most special of them. White gold hands and indices with blue enamel, platinum bezel, platinum case, even a solid platinum pie pan dial, It is a work of art featuring both the enameler's art as well as casecraft and dialcraft in platinum. Its reverse includes a enameled chronometer observatory to remind you that the original constellations were observatory chronometers, and then you've got a solid gold rotor, and though you can't see it, also a solid gold balance bridge. All this splendor costs you $43,900, so very few will be encountered. But the mainstream Constellation Globemaster is a great buy. Affordable at $7,900 on a full bracelet and $7,500 if you want to get it on a strap. That's a lot of watch for the money, and there's a lot to love. Even the $7,500 entry-level Globemaster features desirable traits like a 39mm case, a tungsten bezel that defies scratches. You've got the pie pan dial. It's fully luminescent, 100 meters water resistant, and yes, it is a master chronometer, shock resistant and magnetic resistant, caliber 8900, with a time zone hand that allows you to move the hour hand without stopping the watch or moving the minute hand. So this is a very desirable timepiece. It's almost like the thinking man's Datejust. And I have to say that the Globemaster is one of the best Omegas of the last 10 years, and one of the few real standouts that isn't some kind of Speedmaster or Seamaster. Going on right here, Raphael and Vaselin joining in, saying, I find the DeVille Retropont very appealing, and I agree with you. I think the Chronoscope Retropont from 2005 is one of the coolest watches Omega launched in that decade. We got Tobu saying, picked up the 2022 42mm Speedy today. Perfect timing for a live Tim video to learn more about Omega. And local hero Ed saying, I know you love the UN Regatta. How does the Messina Lab plus Albashorn measure up? Well, the UN Regatta is a hugely sophisticated mechanism that deserves complication parity with the likes of full-blown grand comps. Things like chronometer, chronograph, perpetual calendar, minute repeaters. Like the UN Regatta Timer is one of the most sophisticated chronographs ever made. I think the Messina Lab Albashorn is a cool sort of like what-if watch. What if a modern-day Regatta Timer existed in the 40s? A fun watch, but not technically on par with the UN. However, it will wear more easily than the UN. And we got BNS saying that is one good-looking Globemaster. Trap Vision 3D joining in. Okay, guys, stay with me. We're at 269. Let's get up to 300 people watching this all at once. Viewer wrist shots number 2. Saul C. jumping in with his Atsuka Low-Tech number 6, navigating traffic in his Lexus RCF. That's a cool car and a cool watch. Just try to find one of those watches outside of Japan. Eric O. and his Rolex GMT Master 2 catch the action at the Procore PGA Championship in Napa, California. Jeff, from earlier on, he returns with the newly revived Crador locomotive based on the 1979 original by Gerald Genta. Matt P. of Victoria, British Columbia, thinks differently with his Tudor North Flag, a watch that was just too far ahead of its time, and his Cervelo Aero road bike. Ron H. heralds Antipodean Spring with his Breitling Super Ocean Heritage 57 and Bloomin' Flowers. Guys, send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your passion in this fashion. All right, what's going on here? We got some debate over whether the real Archie was actually watching my show last Monday. I still don't know. What else is going on? Yasa saying, I recently purchased an Omega Constellation Manhattan from 1989. I think in terms of size and proportion, that was the best Constellation Manhattan. And we've got Patel Philippe saying it was indeed Archie. We've got Stuart getting up early joining us from Sydney, and Jose Fernandez, 300-meter Seamaster in blue, currently on the wrist. Ryan Tinney saying time zone hand is a very nice feature. All right, what else is going on here in the box? We got Elia saying last week we reached 369 concurrent. We're up to 281. Let's get to 300. We're going to make this happen, guys. Okay, top 10 Omegas of the last 10 years. So 2016 was a big year for me as I attended my first Basel World. And it was a good time to attend because it was the last full force year of that show before exhibitors started dropping, halls started closing, and the event entered a sort of suicide pact consummated by COVID. So 2006, I should remind you, it was still overflowing. It was still the Basel world of your dream and of legend, to the point that Kari Voutilainen, MB&F, and the Grunefeld brothers had to exhibit in a glorified tent outside the main halls. They called it the Palace. It was a tent, but it was still really cool. And like I said, every hall was full. Omega was always one of the anchors of the old Basel world, and this was no exception. Its Speedmaster CK2998 was a highlight of the Swatch Group's enormous labyrinth of brand booths inside the main hall. So, built on the same case platform as 2012's first Omega in space, it was the pre-moon case design, but more fun and more memorable than the FOIS because it wasn't religiously faithful to anything. It was just a lot of fun. In silver and white, here's a watch that is just enjoyable, handsome, well-proportioned, lovable, and a limited edition of 2,998 pieces. This is from the pre-professional case era, celebrating the late 50s, early 1960s Omegas, including the one that, with Wally Schirra, was the first Omega in space. But this watch is blue, it's silver, it's an imaginary type of panda dial. It's got a semi-lollipop seconds hand, it's got alpha hands, it's got a dropped seconds and minutes track that makes it feel a little bit like a latter-day Omega take on a Paul Newman Daytona. It's colorful, it's youthful, it's playful with that white-blue panda dial, and internally it stayed true to the Moonwatch with a Lamagna-based caliber 1861, so you're getting that Moonwatch heritage, but you're getting it in a fun and unusual package. The limited edition was friendly and comparatively approachable at $6,500, money that these days seems almost Tudor or Longines level 8 years later. A driving-oriented sequel that I also enjoy launched also as an edition of 2998 in 2018 and holds great appeal for those who want something that is even closer to an Omega take on a Rolex Paul Newman Daytona. It was an easy fit due to the 39.7mm case and the non-lyre style lugs, which were only 47 from lug to lug. This was a really cool series of watches, the CK2998, and on value and style, it's one of my top 10, whether you're going with the 2016 or the 2018 model. Note that the 2018, in addition to different colors, also had a pulsometric scale, so it was slightly different. Something like an F1 race doctor would have on hand. Okay, jumping back into the box, Space G95 saying that is a stunner. Jose Fernandez, target achieved. We're up to 314. Guys, can we do 350? Stay with me. I'll make it worth your while. All right, we got Caliber YQG saying that white, black, red one is my favorite. Mark S saying, Tim, was the sunglass retirement your idea or were you encouraged by others? Well, aside from you, Mark, it was mostly my idea. I thought we're no longer a kind of low-profile, scrappy strip mall vendor in South Florida. Our image is a little bit more worldly, a little bit more sophisticated, and I need to get with the times. Remember, I used to be very prim and proper. I was a naval officer. I used to do my own ironing. So I really let my hair down in a manner of speaking with those sunglasses. Maybe I'm just getting back to where I was back in my Navy public affairs years. All right, Jim Millett, spread the word. Let's get these shows to 500 live viewers. All right. Mark, I was encouraged by others, but let me be perfectly frank, I didn't want to court controversy. I was already taking the glasses off for interviews with people who were very venerable and with whom I wanted to make the best impression. Look at my Philippe Dufour interview from 2019 for an example of that. I didn't want to be disrespectful. Okay. 2018 was a memorable one for Omega with the arrival of a redesigned Seamaster Diver 300-meter, which I think we can all agree is pretty much the core Seamaster. But two niche models stood out as exemplars of how Omega often experiments beyond its core market for Speedmasters and Seamasters. The first wrist chronograph was an eye-watering follow-up to both the Haute Horlogerie Tourbillon of the 90s and the Vintage Revival Museum collection of the 2000s. This was a cost no object, limited edition of 18 pieces. The white gold 47.5mm officer style watch was built to pretty much the smallest diameter possible around a new old stock 1913 vintage caliber 18 CHRO, a chronograph movement with a diameter of over 40mm. Now it was finished and assembled and regulated by the Omega Tourbillon workshop to meet modern luxury expectations. And frankly, Lange could do no better. Lang und Heine could do no better. Look at the sharp inward cleft on that chronograph bridge and tell me you're not impressed. A Hunter caseback increased the appeal, as we rarely see it on Omegas of any price point or description, and Omega included a 3-piece Grand Faux enamel dial assembled from 3 separate fired discs on precious metal bases. A massive boxed set, built by hand, stitched by hand, and packed with extra straps, tools, a loop, and a travel pouch added value and opulence. Even the key with its vintage Omega logo was special and included the individual number of the watch on the key. Obviously, a premium price was warranted, and at roughly $137,000 US, this wasn't a watch for compact wrists or compact budgets. But Omega's first wrist chronograph was worth all that and possibly more. Unlike so many others in the mainstream luxury market, this price wasn't achieved by loading up on diamonds or associations with celebrities or farcical limited editions of hundreds or thousands of units. Omega asked for its big price on the basis of quality and rarity. Fair trade. All right, what else is going in the box right here? Mark S. saying the Dufour interview was amazing. I probably prepared for 5 hours for that. I do my homework before I go on camera with a subject. Whether it's just a collector stopping by for a day in the office or Philippe Dufour, I always try to be the best prepared interviewer in the watch business, and I take pride in that. We have local hero Ed. Can we get some Tim time caps available to fund more upmarket sunglasses? I'm in favor of that. We got Patel Philippe saying lateral clutch column wheel, really as good as it gets on that Omega right there. And then we've got Rich Mitch. What's the betting, the white Speedy being involved at the top? I don't know if there will be a white Speedy in today's show, but stay tuned. Okay. At the other end of the price spectrum, Omega proved that even its entry-level watch could be more fun than price point rivals in mainstream luxury. Also from 2018, Omega proved its mettle at the entry level with a watch worthy of heavy metal. Denim and leather, Saxon. Along with wheels of steel, one of their definitive statements as artists. At 40mm in diameter with a hybrid strap of both denim and leather, the Railmaster Denim was a fun $4,900 point of entry to Omega ownership, with coaxial escapement, magnetic immunity, 150-meter water resistance, master chronometer certification, and deeply grooved dial with denim-like blended shades and a crosshair center. It had all the important Omega toys and style built in. This was a watch that felt special even at the entry level and an accessible price point. For just $100 more, a full bracelet was available. This watch was a triumph and a showcase of how far a great idea can be taken even without a towering MSRP, and I still love it. And it's discontinued, so it had a short production run. So you can get something discontinued, collectible, and fun for very little money today. Now, in retrospect, 2019 feels like the last normal year for the watch industry and maybe the world at large. Hard to believe it was just 5 years ago. How much has changed? Omega's most interesting debut of 2019 can be viewed as the world's most expensive Seamaster or the cheapest Richard Mille, depending on your perspective. The Aquatera Ultralite was launched as a sports special geared towards ultra-high impact activities like golf, tennis, batting, motorsports, firearms marksmanship, track and field, the full set, the full suite, and one watch to rule them all. At just 55 grams in a special alloy of media-blasted titanium, it's competitive with the discontinued 53-gram FP Journe aluminum sports models. The dial is made of titanium, and a special manufacturing arrangement was created to shave it ultra-thin and make it lighter still. The movement is made entirely of titanium, beveled and media-blasted. A silicon nitride bezel is equipped for greater toughness against scratches and light weight. For greater shock resistance and a thinner case, let's stay with the movement here, Omega opted for a manual wind caliber while increasing the 8900 base movement from 60 hours of power reserve when automatic to 72 hours of power reserve when manual. And by removing the winding system, its resistance to shock was significantly improved. A unique telescopic crown provides a level of shearing and impact protection that even crown guards cannot. Omega even made a green dial, or at least a green accented version for yours truly when I win the lottery. For $53,400, this model and 2 extra straps is a lot of money. But keep in mind that Omega developed a unique case only used on this model, a unique dial only used on this model with a special manufacturing process, and a unique movement whose research and development plus tooling costs are amortized solely through sales of this ultra niche reference. And consider what a comparable golf-proof Richard Mille RM55 Bubba Watson is going to set you back even as a used watch. Now the Omega starts to look like a bargain. In a timely stroke of fortune, just the last couple of weeks, Omega recently updated the Ultralite as an even more niche edition for Olympic Swedish pole vaulter Armand Duplantis, complete with Swedish national colors of the athlete. It comes complete with a special box and strap and a refreshingly lower price point than the original at $51,400. I dig that so much, and I cannot wait to shoot my first review of one of these things used, or maybe even new, since the 1916 company is now a dealer of new Omega watches. Okay, Sutat saying, Tim, get a bonus payment every time the viewer number hits 300. I wish I could say that. It's only for pride, guys. I'm playing for pride. We're at 355 and counting. Can you break the record for like a non-Baselworld or SIHH show and get me up to 400? We got Mark SN. I wish that Omega was an automatic. And then we have Armand Duplantis is from Louisiana. That may be true, but my understanding is he competes for Sweden. And he competes under Swedish colors. Not unheard of. I've seen stuff like that all the time in cycling. And then we had Marcus. Tim, you had 1,000 when you gave away a Rolex. Yeah, but I can't give away a Rolex once a year. At least I can do Watches and Wonders shows once a year. Wrist shots number 3. Ben S. celebrates the birth of his daughter with Churro the dog and Vacheron Constantin overseas self-winding. Hakan K of Istanbul, Turkey hits the town with his wife in IWC Portuguese Perpetual Calendar 42. Giovanni V explores the Amalfi Coast of Italy with his stunning Panerai PAM 670 equation of time GMT. Mark D of South Florida braves Alaska with his Panerai Luminor Bitompo PAM 1365. That is an adventure. Stephen E. and his bronze Zenith Pilot Type 20 chronograph strike a classical wrist pose. Send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com to see those watches in this box. Top 10 Omegas of the last 10 years continued. American pilot, engineer, and astronaut Ed White deserves to be remembered as something more than the namesake or nickname sake of a watch. His life is a testament to the depth of commitment made by U.S. servicemen, including, and remember, most of the astronauts were military and active duty, including for NASA. So, his life was incredible. Engineer, test pilot, astronaut, and he performed America's first spacewalk. His life came to a tragic end at age 36 in the line of duty on the launch pad. And I think that's always important to restate before talking about the Omega Speedmaster model forever linked to its most famous owner. White's famous spacewalk in 1965, June 1965, was an Omega 105003, and 2021 we saw the revival of that style, a high water mark for Omega Speedmaster editions in the last decade. I actually actually think this one came out in 2020, the modern day Ed White. The pre-moon 39.7mm case looks and wears fantastic. And in an era that sees more and more women interested in Speedmasters, it's a path into the model line that makes no concessions without diamonds, pastel dials, or quartz calibers. This is a way to own the real deal and wear it on a smaller wrist. Omega fans waited multiple decades for the return of the Lamagna 2310-based column wheel caliber 321. Though it arrived in a Moonwatch Platinum case for 2019, the pre-moon model was the one that people really wanted, and they got it in steel for 2020. It's a rare, non-limited Speedmaster that draws more demand than the limited editions. And part of the appeal is the one watchmaker, one watch production process, a relic of a kinder, gentler era in Omega watchmaking. More like Blancpain than Omega, frankly. Still available, but almost always with some lag between order and delivery. There will be a wait list. The Speedmaster Moonwatch 321 Ed White costs $15,400 today, roughly the price for Rolex Daytona. You don't have to ask me which one I would rather have. Okay. We finish with a juxtaposition of the most expensive and least expensive Omega Chronograph models of our lifetimes. Incredibly, these two launched in the same year, but the cheapie overshadowed the price monster in every way. That's right, we're talking about the Moonswatch, every different version of it, new for 2022, at $260 US, powered by a quartz Swatch caliber, and made of plastic in all but name, yeah, bioceramic, chuckle chuckle. The Moonswatch tested the limits of Omega's brand equity by demolishing all barriers between Swatch Group's fast fashion brand and its most important luxury brand. A stroke of marketing genius in the moment, it caused a run on Swatch stores rivaled only by the brand's peak of pop culture relevance in the late 80s and early 1990s. Though to its credit, the Moonswatch did introduce a new audience to the Moonwatch, raised Omega's profile to non-traditional younger buyers, and convinced a generation of youth to start wearing a watch. Skeptics will counter that it introduced a new audience of watch buyers to watch flipping, which started almost immediately, and a huge percentage of Moonswatches sold were immediately posted online for resale, including by young people under 20 years old. It broke down a barrier between Omega's luxury-grade watches and disposable fashion items. Again, this is what the skeptics will say, and the temptation to go back to the well manifested almost immediately with the Omega Blancpain Scuba 50 Fathoms, and the long-term impact of this iteration on other Swatch luxury brands is hard to discern, even from our vantage point in 2024. Time will tell, and we can't foresee it. Though not a luxury product by any means, the machine-made Moonswatch was scalable in a fashion unimaginable for the traditional Omega chronograph, even given that a Moonwatch is mostly machine-made. Something like 1 in 16 watches exported by Switzerland in 2022 was a Moonswatch. To this day, the Moonswatch remains controversial, and its long-term impact on the Swatch Group's luxury brands remains unclear, but I think it was a pretty bold and successful idea, and whether you love or you hate, this has to be considered one of the 10 most important Omega watches of the last decade. So, now, we've spoken of the Omega Speedmaster Chrono Chime, but we've only mentioned its even more elite minute and second repeating cousin in passing. Yes, I speak of the 2022 Olympic 1932 Chrono Chime, which was far more exotic than the Moonwatch cased version. Inspired by a 19th century 1892 wristwatch minute repeater at far left and the 1932 Omega stopwatch that timed Omega's first official Olympics, this watch combines the two of them in a 45mm rose gold case that converts to both a wristwatch and a handheld, and it can work as both a stopwatch and a pocket watch with leather and gold chains. A solid gold movement, caliber 1932, chimes the chrono time, minutes, tens of seconds, and seconds, 60-hour power reserve, made of solid gold, El Primero like 5 Hz beat rate, and it took 6 years and the collaboration of Blancpain to bring this to market for Omega. A monster display caseback reveals that caliber 1932, which is entirely hand-finished. The dial includes both sterling silver engine guilloche and grand faux enamel. And at only $490,800, this numbered series could be yours. We always like to end with a bang. Viewers shouts number 4, David P. and his Hermes H08 witnesses Seville's Plaza de Toros bullfighting ring. Michael B. rides with his Cadillac XT5 SUV with blackout package and all black Rolex GMT Master 2. Daniel M. gets even closer to his Rolex GMT with this beautifully lit root beer bezel. There's our pure photography winner of the night. Yano V visits the 37th America's Cup in Barcelona with a Y2K Vintage Limited Edition Seamaster America's Cup. And Neil G. from Connecticut takes us home with a complicated game and a simple watch from Meister Singer. Guys, a quick piece of bookkeeping, public service announcement. No show next Monday because I will be at our watch fair in Newport Beach, California. Again, you want to check out events at the1916company.com. That is the email to sign up for our watch fair. From the 11th to 12th, Jack Forster will be at our store in Denver for the second watch fair. Similarly, events at the1916company.com. Great job, Sid, tonight. Kenny, I see you over there. Thanks for standing by. Time out, Tim out. Thanks to all you guys for logging on.